Well, thank you, Stephen. And the speaker was right. We do need a bigger room. There are even more people than there were this time a year ago. This is, as Stephen has reminded you, this is the second time I've appeared for you. When I last appeared for you, I'd been in the post only a few weeks. A year on, I can say I've much enjoyed my crash course in science. I think I'm still a very long way away from the status of science buff, but I've definitely become a amateur enthusiast, and I've seen for myself, countless institutions and universities around the country exactly why the UK is world class at science, and exactly why it's so important for the government to continue to support everything that the Royal Society of Biology and all the other bodies which represent science, the Royal Society President is in front of me now, all the other bodies that represent science to Parliament do in this important work in bringing together the academic community with policymakers and those who have a part to play in shaping the funding decisions and other decisions that affect science. As Stephen has said, this is now a much more timely meeting in many ways than it might ideally have been. We gather, less than a week now after the vote on the referendum on our membership of the European Union, and I'm going to say just a few brief words about that result and how, as a community and as a department, I think we need in the short term to think about our response to it. Clearly, many people in this room and many people across universities and scientific institutions across the country were backing Remain. I think we in the debates running up to the referendum, I used to refer to polls showing that something like 93% of scientists were in favour of staying in the European Union. So for an academic community that seldom has such unanimity and which delights in argument and diversity, there was a striking agreement on this question. So you are clearly anxious for reassurance and very, very eager to know exactly how we're going to deal with all of the implications which we're now forced to confront. I want to thank you, though, for the strong advocacy that you all put forward on behalf of the Remain cause during the campaign. But I also want to, as I am, ask you to think about how we best now move forward. There has been a referendum result, 52-48. We need, as a community and as ministers in the department representing you, to see how we can now minimise the damage from it and maximise all of the opportunities that might arise for us. It was a momentous decision, one way or another, in the early hours of Friday morning, and we've now just got to make it work as best we can. So, starting with some of the reassurances that the department and I have been trying to offer to the sector, to the universities and to the science base in the last day or so. Yesterday, we began this process with a statement I put out from the student loan company, providing some reassurance about the access to the student loan system that EU students will continue to have until such a time as our rules may or may not change. But EU students in our system at the moment, studying at our universities, and they represent a significant proportion of our student body, do have access to our loan, but now they will continue to do so for the duration of their studies. Those applying for this autumn will also have access to our important student finance system for the duration of their studies. So that was an initial bit of reassurance that we were able to offer last night. Today, I've put out a further statement, which you probably won't have seen yet, but if you haven't, it's on its way to your inboxes, I hope. And that provides some, again, just clarifying information for anybody who needed it about some aspects of science funding that may in time be impacted depending on the nature of the outcome of any negotiations that are eventually embarked upon. Key thing is to say that in legal terms, nothing has changed overnight as a result of the decision last Friday. We remain in the European research area. Horizon 2020 funding continues to flow during this period, and UK participants can continue to apply to this programme in the usual way, and I anticipate that they will continue to be successful, as they have been in the past. As the PM said in his speech in Downing Street on Friday morning, it's important also that we provide reassurance on the status of both UK nationals working in other EU countries and of citizens of other EU countries working here or studying here in the UK. And again, there are no immediate changes to their status that follow from the EU decision on Friday morning. Their legal status, their residency status is unaffected. Looking forward, I think what this result underpins is the fact that international collaboration is going to become increasingly important for the UK in all its forms, and we need to maximise on the many opportunities for international collaboration that exist for Britain and British science around the world. We remain leading members of intergovernmental organisations such as CERN and of the European Space Agency. And on the 8th of June, the European Spallation Source Council unanimously approved the UK's application to join a new European research programme, the European Spallation Source, a major new accelerator based in Sweden, in which participation is not dependent on the EU. So the message is British science and innovation will endure. And now, more than ever, we have to continue to focus on what it is that makes British science truly world-class. And I'll be saying much, much more about this in a speech I'm giving at the Wellcome Trust later this week. But continuing on the theme of what else the government needs to be doing to support you at this difficult time. Last year, at the same event, I committed to championing science and research. Now, in the intervening period, I hope you will agree with me that the government has done just that, and I can give you the assurance that we will continue to do so. In the spending review, we set out a clear commitment to protect the science and research budget in real terms to the end of the Parliament. That means a decade of protection and sustained investment by this government since 2010. And it builds on our manifesto commitment to record levels of investment in science capital, £6.9 billion all the way out to 2021. And that's because this is nothing less than our world-class research base deserves. We get a high rate of return on our investment in science and research. BIS estimates it to be around 20% per annum. But it's more than just funding and money. People are the most important ingredient in our success, and they're one of the most important things the government recognises it has a role in supporting. We need to harness the talents of the best and brightest to ensure the UK continues to lead the world and continues to collaborate with European and international counterparts. The government in the last year has been doing all it can to encourage the next generation of researchers to come up through our system. Yesterday, we opened our applications to our new master's loan. We're also developing for the first time a new doctoral loan to complement existing Research Council funding. So in this Parliament, we will have utterly transformed the funding landscape for postgraduate finance. Now, one event this year has done more than any other, I believe, to capture the imagination of budding young scientists and engineers, and that was Tim Peake's 6-month mission to the International Space Station. To build on that, we're investing £3 million in a space education programme that has already reached 1 million school-age children. We've also invested £30 million in the Inspiring Science Fund with the Wellcome Trust to upgrade exhibition and education spaces across the country. And of course, our new polar research ship, which some of you know as BOTY or the RRS, Sir David Attenborough, will be backed by a new £1 million Polar Explorer programme to engage young people about the science in the future of our seas. So, to sum up, we can be very proud, I believe, of this government's strong record supporting UK science and optimistic about the future, notwithstanding the challenges. But to prepare for these challenges, it's all the more important that we continue to work very closely with the community on the Higher Education and Research Bill that is now before Parliament. I will be saying more about that in days to come, but I think it's important to remember what the Prime Minister said on the steps of Downing Street on Friday morning. There was an important body of legislation announced in the Queen's speech in May. That programme of work carries on. I will be saying also more about Europe and more about UK research and innovation, the new strategic research body that this bill will create, in a speech later this week at the Wellcome Trust. Finally, I want to echo the speakers' thanks to Steve and Ben and the Royal Society of Biology for organising this year's programme. It's a terrific event in the calendar, and I'm much looking forward, if I'm still in this position, which I sincerely hope I will be, to returning this time next year. Thank you.